What's up, folks? It's been 84 years. Well, not really. About 3 years ago, I made the Sublime Visions Take Everything as Fire Chieftain that used a Purity of Fire Sublime Visions to take everything as fire damage, and it was really good back in the day because it was really cheap. I was one of the first people to use the Sublime Visions. It cost me absolutely nothing, and today that same Sublime Visions cost a mirror. I literally cannot make my own build anymore because its cost has gone through the roof and it's just not worth doing anymore. But now, this patch with Secrets of the Atlas, we have the final key piece to make it without the Sublime Visions, and that is the Bound by Destiny jewels that we got. So, I of course had to make the build again and see if it was just as good, better, or somewhere in between. And I gotta say, for what it did back in the day and what the new one does, it's definitely better. We've got more DPS, we've got more tank, and overall it's a lot easier to make, and I don't think this time I can be priced out of my own gear anymore. I think the gear is standard enough that it feels like it's gonna work no matter when or how I try to make it, which is really, really good. We have switched to Stormburst as the skill of choice, and we are an Inquisitor as our ascendancy of choice, but overall, everything else in the build is pretty straightforward. As far as bossing goes, of course, you can pretty much stand around tanking whatever you want. I've been doing it in tier 17s, I've been doing it in Ubers. The two bosses that are slightly sketchy, I would say, are Exarch, because Exarch can turn off your healing. Awakener kind of does the same thing in ways, but Flame Dash slapped in there, move around a little bit more. You're fine on Awakener for tanking most of his stuff. And then some boss attacks aren't tankable. You know, you're not going to tank a Maven memory game unless you use Val Arctic Armor. And you're not going to tank Eater of Worlds Tentacles, because if they all hit you at once, they do a bit more damage than you can tank, just due to the nature of the setup. But overall, you are still very comfortable in most of the Uber fights. And in T17s, outside of a couple rolls, things you got to watch out for, minus Spell Suppression, minus Aura Effect, Fizz's extra Chaos and Fizz's extra Elemental at the same time as something like a crit mod can be a little sketchy because we don't have crit immunity in this build as of yet. You could probably double corrupt the chest to get some of that going in there. So there was a couple mods here and there that you do have to watch out for, and that's mostly because the new era of T17s have made it a lot more difficult to survive in all aspects of the game on this type of budget. The budget I'm talking about is somewhere between 10 and 50 divines. Depending on where you're starting out from, what pieces you use, I'm about 50 divine invested into the build right now, and I'm pretty much topped out. So it's not stupidly expensive, but it gets into those mid-range prices where if you really want to push it hard, it's going to be a little bit longer of a project for most players. But for me, it's been very fun for the last week to work on it. Mapping is okay. It started as a tornado build, which was really smooth for mapping. Now it's a Stormburst build, but which of course the mapping gets a little bit slower because you are channeling and doing stuff of that nature. But overall, for me, I don't really mind it. I don't mind just standing around, beaming everything down on the screen. Almost feels like I'm painting in a way, just moving my mouse around, zapping things. If you get really good at it, you can hold the charge button down for a little bit, let go of it, most things would explode. You just got to find that rhythm, that timing to make that work. So if that's your thing, definitely look into that as a playstyle. But overall, I like the mapping. I'm notoriously the C- clear speed player, but so a lot of these things I don't get bothered by as much. But this one, I'm very happy with how it's gone. DPS wise, if we turn off most things and don't use a Merc, we're about 30 million in. If we turn everything on and use a Merc, we're about 70 million in. So it's pretty dang punchy when it comes to the overall experience of the build. And you have a lot of safety when you are channeling, specifically, to just sit there and just beam. Feared and invitations and whatever you have, you're pretty good. You're pretty good on the setup. So let's get into how the setup is actually made from the building blocks. I'm going to over-explain it so that everyone can understand. If you don't understand, put in the comments. I'll explain better. So, from the top, we are an Inquisitor, level 97. We got a bunch of stuff. We use some Stormburst, and we're pretty immortal. in a good way. And how do we do that? Well, the first thing you're going to need is a lethal pride of specifically Rakiata. The number at this point in time does not matter. Rakiata is going to give you the ability to get the Tempered by War node. Tempered by War is 50% of cold and lightning damage taken as fire. So there's your first 50%. This one is not a variable. This one is just what it is. You just need this and one of these. The second piece of the kit you're going to need is a Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker with 20% cold damage taken as fire and 20% lightning damage taken as fire as well. That is now 70%. This is a variable roll, so make sure you get a 20% roll. The cost of this will vary depending on the fizz damage taken as fire modifier that you get. So for me, I bought a 19 for about 1 divine. The lower you go, the cheaper it's going to be. Of course, if you look for perfect things, and maybe after this comes out, they may be more expensive depending on where that variable comes from. But for now, they're pretty cheap, about 1 divine for a 19. Then from there, you're going to need a Watcher's Eye of Purity of Fire, specifically just whatever roll you can get. 20% cold and lightning damage taken as fire damage while affected by Purity of Fire. Same thing, once again, this is a variable roll, so it goes from 10 to 20. You're going to need a 20%. In the beginning, I recommend buying the cheapest 20% you can find with something good for you. Once you start getting into the nitty gritty and trying to go more expensive, if you want to find a really good one or you want to burn some divines getting a 20% one, you can get stuff like this one, which is the one I'm wearing currently, which is a Hatred crit and a Zealotry crit with the Purity of Fire on there as well. So this is about where I am at the moment. Very good roll. I got this one for about 7 divine. Already at 20 cold and fire as Purity of Fire on there as well, so didn't have to divine it at all, but options are available depending on the prices. Do look out for different things. You're using a lot of auras, so you're able to pretty much min, max, mix and match a lot of the things around you to see which one you want to run. So this is not a bad choice for that at all. The last piece, and the piece that makes things a little bit weird, is this, the Bound by Destiny. This is once again a variable roll from 5 to 10. You're going to need a 10%. So in this setup, you can't over convert because you need the maximum roll of everything, but you do need the maximum roll of everything. So this is 10% of elemental damage taken as chaos damage if you wear 4 hunter items, and that's why we have the 4 hunter items we have equipped right now. So 4 hunter items will give you 10% of that last conversion, thus you take no cold, no lightning damage, and you are able to ignore cold and lightning resistances completely while getting your fire resist and your chaos resist all the way up. I've got 84 fire resist on mine with 75 chaos resist. I didn't go too hard on the chaos resist, and then when we pop the flask that has charges when you're hit, we go up to 89 fire resist, and we feel pretty thick about all things that considered. So those are the building blocks. You don't have to be an Inquisitor to use these. You don't have to be specifically anything. I am an Inquisitor on this setup because I wanted that double boosted regen. I regenerate about 5,000 life a second right now combined, so life and ES. So if you're going into this, that's why I went Inquisitor for this, because of the combo here. But there probably is versions of it that can go, let's say, Fortify and just stack life. Don't worry about going Pain Attunement. Don't go low life. Many options out there that can probably work out. The main thing is you've got yourself the Lethal Pride, you've got yourself the Watcher's Eye, you've got Purity of Fire on, you've got yourself a Dawnbreaker with the correct numbers, and you have a Bound by Destiny with 4 hunter items equipped. So let's get into the hunter items, because this is where things get a little bit weird. As you can probably tell, I am wearing a Hunter Cloak of Flames. You're wondering, how the hell did he make one of those? Well, I have made a lot of those. I think I have one more here as well, yes. So far, I've been, just for science and wanting to double corrupt, making a lot of these. I'm buying a Scholar's Robe of any influence, or if there is none under 30C, I'm buying a Scholar's Robe and an Elder Orb, making it Elder. I'm then going to the Horda Crafting Bench, typing in Influence, scrolling to the bottom, no, not scrolling to the top, and clicking this one until it becomes a hunter. Hunter orbs are about 2 divine. I usually get it using this at the current price of blue juice in about 1 divine. So about 6 clicks or so, I'll get it. It's a 1 in 6. Your odds are okay in that sense, depending on the price of Hunter's Orb, depending on what's available on the market. This is how I've been making the Scholar's Robe Hunter. And then you go over here, and you go non-unique. And you click this one. Reroll the rarity of a non-unique item. This will cost you a Chance Orb and a Scour. And this is the way to not have to click and destroy your wrist. So you do this. In terms of how many it's taken me so far, on average about 2 divine, 3 divine, a cloak. This one that I have here, this one took 100 Chance Orbs. This one, the original one, took 700. These two took about 1,000 each. The one I'm wearing right now took the most, which was 1,100. So somewhere in between 700 and 1,000 is typically how many Chance Orbs it's taken me. These are tier 3 uniques. They're not super rare, but they are rare enough that you will be spending some money if you want to get a Hunter Scholar's Robe. You don't have to get a Hunter Scholar's Robe to begin with. You can always start off with, let's say, a 100 chest piece, a normal chest piece that is Hunter. That's not that big of a problem. The biggest thing is that you're going to need Hunter pieces in 4 slots, and you're kind of limited on where those slots can be. Because you are wearing 3 uniques that, 4 uniques actually in my setup, that can't be huntered, and also even if you wear a replica Dragon's Fang, which is one of the options, that also is very difficult to hunter, because you have to get Stormburst and Hunter. So, you're very limited on where your hunter piece is going to be. Chest piece is just an easy one if you're going to wear a Cloak of Flames, to make hunter and have one of your hunter modifiers be that. The next modifier for me was going to be boots. The boots was the easiest because I wanted the implicits on both the glove and the helmet, because those are Fizz taken as fire recoup. Here we get unnerve and that final little bit of spell suppress that we need to spell suppress cap. So the final piece for me became the boots. The way I made most of my gear was buying it, essentially. I bought most of the rolls and the gear that I have for about 100C to a divine a piece. They were lower rolls, something like a T2, T1, T1 in the beginning, just enough to get myself suppress capped, and used a couple more of these nodes here to balance it out, which is completely doable. You can go that route as well. But for the most part, these were pre-bought as they are. I did use Eldritch currency to get the life roll on my glove to see if it was doable, to see if it was worth it. It cost me like 10 divine doing it that way. Because of the price of Eldritch currency to get a T1. I don't think that's worth it. I would much rather recommend trying to find pieces that already are crafted that work with lower regens, lower regen rates, but the suppression you need in place. Though, for my helmet, I did have this be a tier 3 life, a T2 life regen, a T1 suppress, and a tier 3 recoup. And it had strands on it. I clicked it with the strand orb, and now it's all T1s. So you can maybe go that route using the strand crafting to generate these items, or you can use recombobulation, just like I made with my rings, to make 4-line items that way as well. So if you're building up and you have the spell suppress, but you have lower life regen rolls and lower life rolls, you can slowly build up using the recombobulation to make it. And I'll show you how to do that with my rings. But that's another way to make it, because you're only really looking for 4 lines on both of your pieces of gear. Actually, this one is 5 lines, but, well, 4 lines, yeah, 4 lines if you don't care about the movement speed. So, they're all 4-line pieces of gear. It's a little bit wonky and hacky to make in terms of just like what you have to do back and forth. It's monotonous, but it is fairly straightforward in doing so. So that is an option that you're going to be able to look into as well. So if you want to make them using that system, by all means. If you can buy them straightforward, by all means. As for how these became Hunter, essentially you were looking for the suffixes, you had the life roll, you had 2 open prefixes because you still want movement speed on there, or if you already have a movement speed, you could just ignore that. And then you just smash it with the Hunter's Orb. Same thing with my rings. These are all made Hunter after the fact. After the item was complete, that's when I made it Hunter. I did not buy these Hunter. I did not craft these Hunter. I just made them Hunter afterwards with a Hunter's Orb. So about 2 exalts, 2 divines per item there. So 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, and I've made a couple other rings. These were my original rings for the setup. I've got the advanced rings now on here. So that's how those came about. You make them Hunter afterwards because it's a lot easier to craft on bases and use the recombobulation or memory strands or whatever when they're not influenced, because you have less modifiers, you have less things to worry about, and you're only looking for 4 lines per piece of gear anyway. So it's easy enough to fit in the Hunter on the prefixes and you're good to go on that. For the rings, what I was talking about here is these were my original rings. It's life, chaos resist, and then whatever else you need on the ring in general. So I originally had critical strike multiplier on these from essences. I would not recommend going that route. It was kind of a pain to make those because you have to essence and all, and then isolate the variables. And it's not that much damage anyway. It's actually better to go cast speed and frenzy charges like I've done on these rings. So these are +1 min frenzy, chaos resist, cast speed, max life. The things that matter are chaos resist, and then you have the resistance modifiers from the quality. These two rings take care of all of your chaos resist as long as they're qualityed. So you're good to go on that regard. So if you want to go that route, by all means. The big thing is just amp these rings with chaos resist and life in the beginning, cast speed if you want to add it on there. A 3-line ring is really easy to make, but of course to make it hunter is going to be a little bit pricey on top of it. So depending on where you want to stop, where you want to kind of go. In the beginning, for most of this character's existence, I had 3-line rings. The second of these rings I made yesterday, so I've had this character going for quite a while and just got the second of my rings in place to replace one of these. So you don't have to really go into this right away, but it is something that you can get at the very end of the character's lifespan, or when you're really wanting to farm on it and go. This is just another upgrade. I was told that the Ring of Calandra does actually work with the hunter items, so depending on the price of those at the moment, right now they're about 14 divines. These are cheaper than 14 divine to make, so I didn't want to use a ring of Calandra to Calandra's Touch to mimic both my rings, but that is an option if you don't want to make both rings and you just want to make one. Apparently it does mimic the influence, at least what I've been told. I don't have one to test and I haven't bought one, but according to what I've been told, it does mimic the influence, so it should work for the Bound by Destiny to have that. The big thing here is you don't want to hunter slam your suffixes. So if you are making a ring that only has 3 lines, make sure to fill your suffixes before you hunter slam, because while there is no good prefix for you to get, the life on hit from attacks does not help you. The suffixes have curses on them. And if you land a curse, you all of a sudden need a secondary curse, and that curse isn't going to help you, and you want to have Assassin's Mark. So you don't want to hunter slam the suffixes, you only want to hunter slam the prefix, and then put on the minus mana cost for channeling, so you're able to actually hold the button down and not freak out and run out of mana all the way through. So the way that these are made is I have a giant tab of Amphithes rings. Basically I'm rolling them till I see a T1 cast speed or T1 life. I don't know if I have any here. I'll show these real quick. So basically, for the beginning, you're looking at like cast speeds and stuff like that, and then you're grabbing yourself an annul, getting the cast speed isolated, you grabbing yourself a regal, then you're annulling again, getting the cast speed isolated, and once you have that as a base, you then do the same thing for a life roll, or a chaos resist roll, or whatever roll you're going for, min frenzy roll, you isolate it, make it so it's a 1-line item. Then you go in here and you go and put on a fire resist, like so. And then you walk to the recombobulation and put one that has cast speed, one that has life. You tick the button for this, and then you press the button, and you have a X amount of chance to get it to give you 2-line items that you want. So you want cast speed and life combined. From those two, once you have a life and cast speed, and you have a let's say life and chaos resist ring, you smash those two together without crafting anything onto it. The reason you craft on a 1-line item like this and you put on fire resist on both of them is because 1-line items are really expensive to recombobulate together, dust wise. So a 2-line item like this is about 20k dust. A 1-line item is like 80 to 95k dust. It's really expensive to smash together 1-line items. But 2-line items, especially in the beginning, they're not expensive at all, so you can go and do that pretty much over and over again. As you can see from how much it took me to make these, I had to add these to my loot filter and go. I wonder if I have a max life roll. Let me see. I can actually show. There's one. Let's see if this one survives. Okay, cool. So that actually survived. So I can show what I mean by this. So we can go into here and we can grab this one. We can grab this one. Smack on fire resist like so. And Bum bum. So you see here, 11k dust for life and cast speed. You want to do life and something on the suffixes. So life and cast speed, life and chaos resist, life and min frenzy, and then you're going to be combining those, what you get from those after you click the button. Again, you can get nothing. So there is the possibility that you lose, everything on the modifier, but you have to just do that over and over and over again. That's why I was saying it's a bit tedious and why I have so many rings. Here's another one for that, and then you just go and find another one, and another one, and another one. And you keep smashing 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 3, 3 + 3 = 4, and that's how this one came about. It is a tedious process, it is a long process, but once you get the 4 lines you need, life, chaos resist, frenzy, and cast speed, then all you have to do is just hunter smash it, and you have your hunter ring done. And if you don't want to do it twice, then by all means use the divines, buy a ring of Calandra, and you're good to go on that. Now, that is the pieces that are huntered. So you have your 4 hunter pieces, you've got a cloak, you've got the 2 rings, you've got yourself a pair of boots. In the beginning, you do, of course, like I said, don't have to go through all this hassle for these. You can go for just life and chaos resist and some other rolls on there that you can make work with, as long as it's a hunter piece. Same with the chest piece. Go with the rare, don't go for the cloak of flames, just in case you don't have enough money to go all the way to get the cloak of flames. Don't worry about it. Get yourself what you need. Same then with the boots, just buy something that works for you. Don't go for all the regen, don't go for all the regeneration rate. Just make sure the spell suppress is there, because that's going to really help you in terms of your defenses to get that into the build early on. As for why I have this intelligence enchant on here, that's where the ashes comes from. So in the beginning, I was running a replica Dragon's Fang's Flight, and this was doing just fine for me for the most part, but there was a point where I was able to get a couple more breakpoints from the increased quality and duration that I was getting from the skill gem. So the quality does add base duration to the skill gem. So because we are so close to these nodes and picking up more duration there, we're able to put on Potency of Will, and I was able to get myself an increased skill effect duration Soul Tether, the replica version of it. I was able to switch the ashes and get to another breakpoint there as a result. So if we just hold the button down, you'll see that we actually go up to like 84 stacks or something pretty ridiculously high when we're just standing around holding the button. So we got 74 there, and then we go ahead and pop ourselves the Onslaught Flask, and we'll go up to 84 or so. And in combat, this is usually where we sit, and you can see my mana orb over there freaking out, but I have to stand near my what's it called, Merc, to make that happen. So that's not always going to be the case, and then it explodes for a really long time, but we can go up to a really high orb count because of all that skill effect duration. But in the beginning, a replica Dragon Fang is going to work out just fine for you, because you don't have as many levels and as much skill effect duration to reach those breakpoints. But when you do, and if you switch to an Ashes, you lose the attribute requirements reductions, and because you're losing those, you're gonna need to have a little bit more int to wear a Grace of the Goddess, which is about 245 int to wear, and we are right on the borderline of being able to wear that because we have the enchant on the chest. So that's the reason we have the enchanted chest, and that's the reason I've had to enchant all my chest after that first one. Where is it? This is my first one. So that one didn't have the enchant, so I have had to since then enchant all of my chests that I've been double corrupting to be able to run my build. So just be mindful that there are some attribute requirements there, and that's also why Precision and Val Arctic Armor are not level 20, because I just don't have the dex for it. So we're right on the edge of what our attributes can hold. So if you're looking around for gear and wondering, why can't you run everything the way I am, it's probably just due to the enchant missing from the chest to get those last couple of quality intelligence points that you need there. Next, the Rakiatas that I had in the beginning was a very simple one with absolutely nothing on it. It was just the Rakiatas. From there, I've been able to kind of scour around and find a good one, the 17088. The number, what that dictates is what's on the chart, the nodes, the second line modifier. So I've got 5% chance to deal double damage, 5% chance to deal double damage on this one, and that's pretty good for me in terms of the value for shock damage, the value for overall damage, and just what it's giving me. The rest of the stuff is burning damage and totem placement speed. Doesn't really matter. I bought this one for fairly cheap, I think it was 2 or 3 divine, for 15% double damage into the build, and still that tempered by war. So the name, Rakiata, that's what matters to get you the tempered by war, but the number is what's going to be on the nodes, and you can use path of building to figure out number options and quality options there. There's plenty of videos out there for that if you're interested in that, but that's a real min-maxing kind of thing at the end of the day, so don't worry about it in the beginning. Like I said with the Watcher's Eye, buy a Purity of Fire with 20%, and then from there you can do some fancy shenanigans depending on what you're looking for. Recovery rate by Vitality is very strong, regen is kind of okay. Conground lingering for longer works just fine, makes it so you don't have to right click and stop moving as much. Right now I have 4 seconds in which I have to right click every now and then to be able to make sure that I just keep that, you know, stableness, or use a movement skill, just whatever, to make sure I keep the Conground on me, because when I'm walking around with Righteous Fire, of course, I would be dropping that non-stop if I didn't move every now and then to keep the regen on both of them going at the same time. From there, Replica Soul Tether is what's giving me my ES pool. So if I take that off, you can see my ES goes completely gone, but with it on, it's pretty good. We got that Corrupted Soul, we got the max life resistances on there, and we have this node that 30% of the chaos damage taken does not bypass energy shield, so it's still useful for chaos damage as well, to a lesser degree, but that's what's giving me the ES pool that I have currently on this build. If you wanted to wear a different belt, let's say a Blood of the Mages, you probably wouldn't go Inquisitor because you'd be losing out on the energy shield that this setup gives you. So you'd probably be looking at one of the other setups, maybe a CI Trickster, maybe a Fortify setup as melee, not going Pain Attunement, whatever have you. Something like that would probably be where you end up going with that option. If you don't want to wear a Replica Soul Tether, that is going to be your option there. But for me, on the Inquisitor, it's very good. It's giving me that double pool. Everything is being taken by both pools, and it's pretty strong as a result of that. From there, the next piece of kit that we got to talk about, I guess, is the Grace of the Goddess. This is a overall 135 Fizz's extra wand that I bought for about 10 divines. Their price fluctuates quite rapidly. I have one of them here that is a 130 that's also for sale for 10 divines, because that's their normal price at 130 right now. It, like I said, it fluxes a lot. Originally I started the build at a 120 overall cost, which was, I believe, 4 divines at the time. I can actually check and see what the price of those are currently. So we are looking at Grace of the Goddess. So 137 is 22 divines right now. A 130, about 7 divines. So the one I have listed is a bit overkill at the moment. But I originally started the build with a 120, which is about 4 divine, is where I started the build with. Upgrading that hasn't really gotten me all that much DPS. I'd say from the 120 to the 135, maybe it's been like 5% DPS. But once you start getting into bigger numbers, 5% is a pretty sizable chunk of the actual total number. Like, it's sometimes more than one build can do in damage overall, but that's just something to keep in mind. You don't have to go really high to begin with, and of course, if you really want to go, you can hit these with orbs to give yourself even more damage. Tempering orbs, I believe, or is it tailoring? Tempering? One of the two. To get those enchanted modifiers that you see on the fancy ones, but I wouldn't worry about that in the beginning. It's not really worth it for you. Just get a 120, or even lower than that, 110 works as well. You're not losing out on that much damage for that, and either way. The rest of the gear is really, really straightforward, to be honest. Like I said, it's just life, regen, suppress. That's it. That's all the gear is. The rings are just damage, and then Weir and Ashes or a replica. And that's it. That's the gearing. It's extremely straightforward in terms of its gearing, and that's why I'm really happy with it, because it means I can't be priced out of this setup, right? Most of the gear pieces that are available, most of the pieces that you need, they're always going to be available. They're always going to be cheap. They're always going to be something, unless something changes with how they drop their rarity, their tier, whatever it is. There is, of course, changes there that can happen. So the 3 main parts are there. The expensive parts are kind of here in the center. So Unnatural Instincts, not super expensive, but very big for this setup, because we are also wearing a Light of Meaning. This was during the night when I usually stream. It's about 10 divine. During the day, it's about 6 divine. This is one of the more expensive pieces overall in the build, but it's extremely powerful to have in this Scion node because we are going around it. Like you're seeing from the Unnatural Instincts, it's 142 increased physical damage, and because Stormburst is a phys-based skill, really, really strong for that. So if you're going to be picking up a Light of Meaning as one of your final upgrades, then that's going to be huge for you. It's going to really help your damage out, but just know that it does have a price in the beginning, and you should be mindful of that because of, you know, what it costs to go out with. The second thing is a Green Nightmare. I use a Green Nightmare down here to get more of that spell suppress. Like I said, we don't have a lot of places to get it, so we need to get it as many places as we can. And then we change these two nodes to be cold resist, so these are 4 spell suppress each here. We get spell suppress from this node here, and then we get these 2 spell suppress nodes here and up here as well. So this is kind of the corner of spell suppress with Mage Bane. Gives us just enough to have 101 spell suppress damage here, and thus you don't need a greater spell suppress here if you have exactly T1 gear, but depending on what you need, you might have to flex with these or grab another point here, maybe drop, you know, with this point here, grab one here, and flex your gear around until you can get to a point where it works out for you in that regard. And then that's it. Honestly, that's how straightforward this build is. You essentially don't need to worry about much else besides the couple building blocks that you need. Like I said, the Light of Meaning can be kind of expensive. That one's kind of annoying, but the rest of the pieces, the Timeless Jewel, the Lethal Pride, the Bound by Destiny, all of these are pretty common. Versions of it can be bought. If everything gets bought out, there'll be more. You can divine them to be the right number. Dawnbreakers are very common drop. Just need to get the right number once again. You'll notice in my path of building for this build, I actually have minused the chance to block on my Dawnbreaker just so it's the correct amount of block, because you are taking so much fire damage on this build, because you take everything as fire damage, you don't actually have block. And if you were to look at the path of building without the minus on the block, you're going to have a way more bigger effective HP pool than I do, because it's not your real effective HP pool. So I actually took the block off my Dawnbreaker in the path of building just to clarify that that's why it looks like that, and it doesn't, you don't actually have any block at all to begin with. For the rest of the linkage and gearing, we're using Stormburst. Like I said, this is the main skill of choice. 2120 is fine. There is another breakpoint if you get a 2123, but I ain't gonna go for that. That's just absolute ludicrous. So 2120 Stormburst, pretty cheap, no problem at all. Pick one of those up. Critical damage support, we are crit after all, with a Diamond Flask, with a Bottle of Faith, with my version of the Zealotry and Hatred that I have going on here. That's all coming from that. We crit pretty well. If you don't have this Watcher's Eye, don't worry about it. You're still gonna have plenty of damage. Choose one of the 2 modifiers, Hatred crit or Zealotry crit, and it'll help you in the long run just fine. So don't freak out too much about that. Focus channeling is the new support that came with this patch, which actually really helps this build a lot because you are able to stand around so much further, so much longer. You can fully channel up pretty easily, and you can bear with the cost as long as you're next to your Merc pretty okay. As you can tell, I can just sit here and hold the button down, no problem at all. If you're not next to your Merc, you can still do it. You just need to tweak a couple things, like not use a Silver Flask. I can still stand out here and hold the button down just fine. It's just easier to hold it next to the Merc because the Merc is wearing a Shaper Seed. As you can see, I did run a mana there. So you might have to tweak a little bit on how fast you're casting at that point, or change around how much mana regeneration you have otherwise. But overall, it's not a problem. It's only a problem for me because I've gone so hard into skill effect duration that I kind of have overdone what I need to do there. So realistically, you could swap this out for, I don't know, Mana Flask and sustain that if that's what you were going for. But it's a very powerful setup, especially with Mercenaries being around, to be able to use that. If not, just don't go for so much skill effect duration. You'll be good to go. Infused channeling, very good for this. 29% more damage while you're channeling, but also another 14% less damage from hits, which means that you are at your tankiest as long as you're channeling. So if you're going to get hit by something, don't stop channeling, because that's when you are actually at your tankiest on the setup. Definitely very, very good for that. More duration, just, you know, more duration is good. If I were to switch this 2023 over there, it wouldn't actually change this thing at all because I don't reach a breakpoint, so this one can just be a normal more duration. And then Arcane Surge, because Arcane Surge is good nowadays. It's actually a proper link and gives you mana regen and stuff like that, so Arcane Surge is in the main links. As for the rest of the stuff, Frostblink, Life Tap, and Sigil of Power. Sigil of Power is actually really good for you because you are using mana so fast, and because you are using mana so fast, it charges up pretty quickly, and you also get a very long-lasting Sigil of Power at 26.9 seconds. So when you have your Merc next to you and you put the Sigil down, you're going to be in there for quite a while, and it's pretty dang good for you just to have another defensive layer. Once it's at max stages, it's 29% less damage while at max stages. So once again, you're safest when you're standing still in a Sigil of Power, channeling your skill. So get it topped up, stand in there, you're good to go. No real fears there. And it gives you a little bit more damage on top of it as well, but not that much. The reason it's life tapped is because everything that I'm not using directly is life tapped. Assassin's Mark, I let myself cast as I wish because it's used once at the beginning of the fight. You can see it blips my mana, but the rest of my stuff, if you're channeling and then you were to, let's say, Frostblink, and those were both on your mana pool, that would actually kind of you for a second and stop your channel, so you don't want that, because you are able to use this version of Frostblink, the normal version, to keep your channel stacks and move around. So if you do need to move in combat, like reposition yourself because you're taking too much damage from a stack of things, normal Frostblink will let you do that because it's an instant skill. And as long as it's not going to you, as in run out of mana, you can use it, and that's why it's on life tap there. So that's kind of the reason for that. Righteous Fire, Assassin's Mark, Arctic Armor, just something somewhere to hold those three things. Righteous Fire is easy to use as an Inquisitor, just a lot more damage. Assassin's Mark, use it at the beginning of a boss fight, and then don't worry about it afterwards. Arctic Armor, you are standing still, once again. You are channeling, you're standing still, you're doing all that stuff, so 20% less physical damage taken, 20% less fire damage taken. You are taking mostly fire damage, and the little bit of physical damage you do take, this helps mitigate that once again. So huge buff for the build to be able to just stand still and not worry about it. Standing still is where you are the strongest, channeling is where you are the most strongest. From there, Purity of Fire, Petrified Blood, Zealotry, and Enlighten. I just got an Enlighten 3 in here. Zealotry, Petrified Blood, and Purity of Fire. They are in a +1 helmet. Purity of Fire now that is a level 23 because I switched to Ashes. When I was the Replica Dragon Fang's Flight, I did not have a 23, so I did not get that +1 additional max fire resist. But if you switch to Ashes, if you get the enchant on your cloak, then you will get that +1 max if you put in a helmet that has a +1 AoE socketed gems in it. So that is why it's in there. And then you also get the benefit of, quality upgrades for Petrified Blood, quality upgrades for Purity of Fire. Not that you really need fire resist, you're overcapped as anything on that, but that is benefits of that. Zealotry is my own Zealotry, and then I have Hatred coming from the Merc. I'll show that in a second, actually, because that's a whole different thing I gotta explain. So for me, normally, when I'm just standing around, I'm only getting the effects of the Conch Ground from here. I don't get the Hatred effect unless I have my Merc with me. So part of this build is built around the Merc, part of it is not. So if you do this later on and Mercenaries aren't a thing, the Merc may be something you have to tweak, and as a result, the Watcher's Eye and things of that nature you might be wearing might be tweaked as well. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at this later on. Cast on damage taken, Immortal Call, very powerful for the build, just triggers non-stop. It's a very big duration when you have Ashes on as well. So for me, I have a 3.37 second duration of Immortal Call and a cooldown of 2 seconds. So it's 2 off, 2 on, very consistent, very strong, pretty much always up. Very good for the build. More duration is in there. And once again, live tap just to make sure that I don't use mana when I don't want to use it, so that's why that 4 link exists in there. For the auras that are on your life, we have Arrogance to put them on your life, Clarity level 20, Vitality level 20, and Precision level 14. The reason we do this is just a little bit more crit for Precision, of course Vitality and Clarity, so that we can channel and also have a massive amount of regen. I did have Herald of Purity on my life roll originally without Precision, which let me go up to about 50% life reservation. I wasn't really a fan of that because I wanted all my life reservation. and I wanted to use the 15% of damage taken from hits is leached as life during effect, so that I had overleech in the build. I felt that this was just better. It let me get a higher level clarity. It let me channel longer, further, faster, all that stuff. So that really helped with the build. So that's why I don't reserve all of my life, and there really isn't anything left to fit in what I can fit into the build in terms of sockets and reservations. So that's why I just put precision in there. And then because we are running this node here for increased damage taken for each aura and herald skill affecting you, we have a lot of auras affecting us, so it's a very powerful node. If you're trying to squeeze in a little bit more, like I did with Herald of Purity, you would switch that over to the Life Reservation Efficiency Skills node, and you're good to go on that. Just something to keep in mind, depending on how you're wanting to do that, and what your options are there. For the rest of the reservations, or masteries, I literally have just 6 life masteries, because I'm traveling around to that many nodes. So I just have 6 life masteries to get more life. Why not? It's pretty good for the build. Works out for me. It's one of the few times I've actually get to use all 6 nodes, so definitely go with that. That's just mana reservation there, and then duration down there with crit multi there. So pretty straightforward in terms of the masteries. Nothing fancy going on there as well. The build, in terms of the flasks, you got 1 flask with the charge on crit chance, diamond down there. The rest of these are gain charges when you get hit. I have rarity on this one, life regen on this one, the damage taken from hits leeches life on this one. So the triple there for that, gain charges when you're hit. Once again, you are safest when you're standing still. You're going to be hit a lot when you're standing still. These charge up their things pretty quickly. Not a bad thing to do there at all if you want to do that. The rarity is there on the onslaught just because I couldn't really think of anything else that I wanted to do, but you probably could go for the avoid stun. Actually, I'm just going to switch mine to the avoid stun. Sometimes you do get stunned for damages when you are channeling, and it takes you out of the channel, which can be a little bit annoying. But so I haven't really been able to solve the channel problem yet, but at some point I will maybe in the future worry about that more, but for now probably fine, fair enough to run that. Let's talk about this league's special mechanic, the Mercenary. So this is where I'm getting my hatred from, and that's why the Watcher's Eye I have has hatred on it, because as you can tell, it's not on my gear anywhere I have, but it's on the Merc. And the big thing about that is I'm boosting this hatred up a lot. So I have a 57% string of servitude for hatred. I have a chest piece with 37% hatred effect, 12% increased aura curses. I've got a staff with 57% hatred aura effect from the Redeemer. I've got a Call of the Void with hatred on it. I've got a Mark of the Elder with hatred on it. I've got a Shaper's Seed with hatred on it that I've put on Beacon of Hope to make it so that the hatred is a bigger radius. This thing's hatred is huge. Like it's 217% boosted, and I can't actually get away from it because the radius is so big. This thing has been great as a merc for me because 1, the hatred is massive. 2, if it does chill and stuff, I think Call of the Void is helping with that. I really haven't noticed that much, but Shaper's Seed, life regeneration, mana regeneration, it's why I can stand next to it and actually hold the button down fully, because I don't run out of mana while standing next to it. I have that much mana regen from it, as you can tell. Mana's blinking, we're good to go. It's very bright, I know. And the big thing for me is that because the Merc is there to give me hatred, I can also make use of more Watcher's Eyes that have hatred options on them. So this is giving me more of that base crit that I was talking about there. So definitely look for a hatred Merc. The big thing here is the Val Glacial Hammer is very annoying. As a result, you can get stuck in that all the time because he just puts it down. You know, it's that like that Rorschach meme where it's like, you're not stuck in here with me, I'm stuck in here, or whatever. The other way around. Yeah, he just kind of traps you in places. But thankfully, you're at your thickest when you're standing around. So just wait a second for him to put it down. It's annoying, but it is what it is. Other than that, his gear is just life regeneration stuff I need to switch out for. But he's been really good for just that boosted hatred effect from him and allowing me to use the Watcher's Eye. So 100% recommend that. Something to keep in mind, I remember there is, do not buy things that are the higher base, like this one, because you can't wear something with 98 dex. Originally, these were my boots. I had some pretty good ones for high movement speed and hunter stuff on there as well. but because the dex requirement was so much higher than I could wear, because these are the 84 bases, I can't wear them, so I just have a second pair of those kicking about, and not very useful. If we look at what the Merc is actually adding to the build, you'll see that in the path of building that I've linked in below, you'll see that there's Merc numbers down here, and then I do also have the Hatred here to tick on. So if you want to check what it's doing, how much it's doing, if I just turn on the Hatred, you'll see that I go up to 41 mil, and then if I turn off these to get the regens and what have you in there, you'll see that we go up to 54 mil from just the Merc, so pretty powerful stuff there. 29 to 54, definitely gaining more than 50% damage, so that's helping, you know, in terms of the overall bringing a Merc with you. The unique monsters gain 50% life, so you of course want to have at least 50% gains in that. So not only are you gaining the mana regen, you're gaining that, you're gaining the benefits of all the other things that are going on. From there, if you turn on your Silver Flask, because now you can sustain that with the Mercenary being there with the Shaper Seed, you're going up to 60 mil, and then when you pop a Bottle of Faith, you're going up to 73 mil on this bad boy, and it's really, really good as the overall just stand around channeling. You got a big max Fizz hit, you got a big max Elemental hit, Chaos hits pretty good. This is, of course, with Immortal Call, so we turn that off. We're looking at 46, 121, 63. Still very good, still very stand aroundable, and we don't have to worry about things like endurance charges. We don't have to worry about doing war cries. We don't have to do anything fancy. I've just set it to 10 shock because that's about what I get on Ubers in general. We've channeled for a while. We're standing in a sigil of power. We're good to go. Basically, all your combat is going to be put the sigil down, channel, and just spin around, have a good time, and it works pretty well. But yeah, that's been, I think, everything in the build. It's quite a lot. I've made a lot of chests. I've made and bought a bunch of pieces. I've tweaked and made a bunch of changes over the course of this build, but where it sits now, I'm very happy with it. I think it's exactly what I want the build to be, and it can do almost all the content I care about doing, from ghosted T17s and all that stuff, as long as I'm a little picky. I'm making sure I don't choose the wrong modifier. And yeah, I hope people enjoy it. I hope people like it. I hope people make versions of it that are different, taking it to different places, different content, all that stuff. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below, and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. Thank you so much. Peace.